Hi everyone, today I'm going to be talking about hair loss, specifically hair loss that's related to stress or anxiety. Now, obviously, once again, I am not a healthcare professional. If you do feel like you're losing an especially worrying amount of hair, then please do contact a doctor or some kind of healthcare professional. I'm just here today to talk about my experience, what I did, and how I managed to get my hair thick again. Just a really quick little bit of background. When I was dealing with really severe stress and anxiety, I lost a lot of hair to the point where all I had to do was run my fingers through it and big clumps would come out, and it got to the point where I was almost afraid to wash or touch it because so much was coming out and it really thinned a lot. There wasn't sort of like a magic cure, there wasn't a specific product I used. I just started changing my routine a bit. So the first thing I did was swapped my hairbrush for a really wide pronged comb, and I would just, instead of sort of just doing what you would usually do, just brushing it, I would hold it at the roots and just gently run the widest comb I could find through it. And I found that that just sort of stopped the breakages, it stopped pulling it from the roots as well, and it was just a lot gentler on my hair. The next thing I did was banish the ponytail. I am a big fan of a high ponytail and of a bun as well. I always just used to wear my hair up constantly just because I just preferred it that way. It meant I didn't have to do anything with it. But that does weaken your hair. As you're pulling it to make it tighter, it's breaking your hair. It's, instead of just pulling it from the root as well, it's causing breakages halfway down. It is not what you want to do. Instead, I swapped it for a loose plait, and I would just constantly plait my hair, night, day, constantly. That is another thing that I did. I started wearing my hair in a very loose plait of a night. I guess if you're not really much of a mover in the night, then it doesn't necessarily matter, but I do move around quite a lot in the night, and I found that, or at least I think this is what would happen, that I would sort of wake up with my hands tangled in my hair, and I'm assuming that in the night I was sort of pulling it around, and that just weakened, and again it would cause the hair to break. So I just put it in a very loose plait, and I found that that just kept it all together in one place, and that little strands weren't being snagged and pulled by myself, the clothes I was wearing, or my bed sheets or anything like that. I then decided to review my hair care routine. Now, when I say hair care routine, I am not into sort of beauty and all of that kind of thing. My hair care routine was hair wash, hairspray, a little bit of heat. I have completely stopped using heat unless it's a particularly special occasion. I just let it do its natural frizzy thing day to day. Just because heat, again, it damages it. Even when you use heat protector, it's still damaging your hair, and particularly things like hair straighteners, you are pulling down on your hair as you're doing it. It's just a complete no-no. If you do have very even a sensitive scalp, that kind of thing just isn't good. So I completely cut that out. I also started using better shampoo and conditioner. Before I just didn't care, I just bought the cheapest brand. Now, I mean, it does vary. For the most part, I do use Head and Shoulders just because it nourishes your scalp, and it's a lot better for if you have a sensitive scalp. You know, even if you don't have dandruff, I would still recommend looking into it just because it is a lot more nourishing. I also started using Dr. Organic products. Now, I'm not actually sure about the brand necessarily. I know you can get it in Holland & Barrett, so it's always worth having a look in there. But it's Dr. Organic Bioactive Hair Care, if I remember, and yeah, it's just really nice, natural, nourishing hair wash. The only downside is that it doesn't give you the really intense clean that you would usually have, but I still think that it does the job. I wouldn't recommend necessarily using it every night. It is still nice to give your hair a good clean, but it's really nice. They do different scents, they have different sort of criteria, if you've got broken hair, dry hair, oily hair, so definitely just go in and have a little peruse of what they've got. The next thing I did was I just took out as many chemicals as I could for my hair care routine. So I stopped using dry shampoo, hairspray, any sort of scented spray to make my hair smell nice. I cut it all out just to avoid irritation, to avoid chemical damage. it all went. I now very rarely use hairspray. I very rarely use dry shampoo. I try to avoid them as much as possible, even if it means that I don't always look my best. I would rather have like slightly iffy looking thick hair than really shiny but in very thin hair with a really sensitive itchy scalp. So I guess you have to sort of weigh it up. If eventually your hair does thicken, you can reintroduce a lot of these things. I have started to reintroduce things like dry shampoo and things, just in moderation. I do find that if I go too over the top, I do start to get an irritated scalp again. But I think a lot of this is just about experimenting, taking things out and putting things back in and seeing the difference that it makes. Something else that I would recommend are hair masks. I'm going to leave a link down below to a website that I looked at. I've only ever tried two like sort of homemade ones. I did an egg yolk, an olive oil one and a coconut oil one. Now I personally recommend the egg yolk and olive oil only because coconut oil was good, but it was very greasy and it really stuck to my hair. Perhaps if you have lighter coloured hair, the sort of a greasier look doesn't show as much, but I have quite dark brown hair and I found that it just made my hair look incredibly greasy. What I will say is that if you do want to use coconut oil, rub it onto your hands and then just scrunch it into your hair. I think it's better off to do it little and often as opposed to one really big one, because I found that it took about 3 really intense washes and dry shampoo to get all the coconut oil out of my hair, which kind of just nullifies the whole point of doing it, because you're still going to be using loads of chemicals, you're still going to be doing an intensive wash, and that will actually lead to hair loss, I found. So rub, gently scrunch, and don't worry about covering every single hair. If you do that, you will find it incredibly difficult. Like I said, if you do get to that point where you've already done it and you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? Dry shampoo is pretty much your only saviour, I found. So just try to do it as little as possible, but instead of doing it once, like a really big one every 3 months, do like a small one once a month, that kind of thing. That is it for me for today. This video is a bit shorter because I've got a bit of a hectic schedule this week, but I hope that you found it useful. Once again, I'm not a professional. What works for me might not work for you. Everyone's bodies are different, everyone's situation is different. Obviously, ideally, the best thing to do is to just completely cut out the stress because that is what's causing it, but sometimes it's not easy to do that. You're better off just trying to do a bit of damage control as opposed to just trying to stop it at the source. So I would just say be open-minded, sort of look for more natural alternatives, and yeah, as always, leave any comments below, sharing your experience, your tips and tricks, and I will hopefully see you soon.